Hey, what if I do that again? So, good evening, everybody. This is the June 18th meeting of Transportation and Circulation Committee for LOCAC. And I'm just going to call out people as they arrived. Trish.
Here.
Jim Hale.
Here.
Seamus.
Here.
Jeff Bartell.
Here.
Meg. I didn't hear you. Oh, you have to unmute.
Sorry, here.
Great. Jeff, Jeff Krebs, you're not officially on the committee, but I see that you are here. And then Ted, you are present. Okay. I don't have any announcements. We've got some cool stuff on the agenda tonight, so let's just get going. Big, huge thanks to Seamus for sending this information to me about Baywood Elementary. So Baywood Elementary School is one of the locations that was a focus of our Safe Trek Complete Street Safety Assessment. Big problems around that school as far as school safety, safe routes to school, both 11th Street and El Moro are collector streets, so that means they collect a lot of traffic, and we don't always have crossing guards on those streets. The school is slated to be torn down and a new school built in that same location. And I'm going to share my screen with you and show you as soon as I can find it. Hold on. All right. Give me a second. See if you can see this page. And hopefully you guys all took a look at this. Here. Okay. Here it is. There we go. I have a whole bunch of things up here to show you, so it's taking me a moment to get it all together. So hopefully you had a chance to take a look at this design. There we go. And this would be 11th Street. This would be El Moro. The concept is they're going to build the new school where the playground is. And then they're going to tear down, when it's complete, they'll tear down the old school and put in a playground, which is kind of cool. So, you know, it sounds pretty efficient way to do it. The issue that comes to my mind is that 11th Street is currently an unpaved, no sidewalk, bunch of trees there on 11th Street. It's a super busy street. It is the street that goes through the heart of Baywood all the way almost to Los Osos Valley Road. And then they are proposing putting the drop off for the kids here, which right now is over here on 9th Street, which is a nice and quiet street. So that's a big red flag for me personally. And then there's another issue with this street, and I'm going to share with you, bear with me for a second. I'm going to get out of here and show you something else. If I can. Hold on, hold on. Here we go. So this is a picture of 11th Street in El Moro when it rains. There's actually a huge amount of water so here's, this is 11th Street. 11th Street is a bicycle advisory, it's a bicycle boulevard. And there's a lot of flooding here. There's actually flooding that goes into the homes. I'm going to show you a map of that. Let me get out of here and I'll show you where the flooding comes in. This was provided to me by a woman who lives on this street. So water's flowing down 12th Street, flowing down 11th Street. It's actually flooding through the property of all these homes here. And when I say flooding, I actually have a video that I might send you guys. You can take a look at. It's like a creek flowing through. So the other issue that is a concern, the way I see it, is that 11th Street currently is not paved. It's just a big sandy area here with trees. And if they pave that area with concrete sidewalk and a drop off, you're going to get even more water flowing here and flooding this whole area down here on El Moro. So we have two traffic and circulation issues that I believe need to be addressed for the school. I'm just going to go back and pull up the map again. So what I did, Seamus gave me the name of one of the trustees for San Luis Coastal, a man who lives in Los Osos. His name is Chris Unger. I reached out to him. And then I had previously had an interaction with Ryan Pinkerton, who is an administrator with the Coastal.
Yeah, he's the sort of number two to the superintendent's Dr. Prater, and Ryan is his deputy who manages the budget and construction and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I had talked to Ryan about Sunnyside School. And so I thought, well, I've got his phone number. I've got his email. I might as well call him. So I didn't call him. I emailed him, and he got back to me, and Chris got back to me. And so, I told Chris our concerns, well, at least my concerns about the school. And he said, well, this is a preliminary design. You really need to talk to Ryan. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I've, emailed Ryan, and he said he's very interested in meeting with us. He would like to hear our concerns. So I have invited him to come to the July meeting. I put him on July instead of tonight's meeting because I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to discuss the school, what any other issues that you might see here, concerns that you might have, so that we're completely organized when Ryan shows up and we can really provide good input for this project. So opening up for discussion, I'm gonna go back to, so I can see all of your lovely faces. And anybody like to get started with talking about this project and ideas or issues that they might want to address?
One is the parking they've added on the corner of 11th and El Moro.
Did you say parking?
Yes, they
What's,
put parking in the area where kids are going to congregate to cross the street, and then they'll be right in the way of the driveway for that. And then the cars leaving are going to be making a left into the intersection. It's ugly looking.
yeah, and not only that, Ted, let's not forget that we have middle school kids walking on the El Moro bike path, and they get dumped right into that area of Baywood Elementary. So you not only have elementary school kids, but now you have middle school kids all coming along El Moro. And yeah, I don't know really, as far as parking goes right now, and Jeff and I have actually we went and walked that just a couple weeks ago, and people park everywhere on the sandy side of the road, waiting for their kids to get out of school and then cross the street, not even at a corner. They're just coming across the street to get to their parents' car. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the day we were there was not a crossing guard on El Moro. There was not a crossing guard on 11th Street.
Yeah, there were no crossing guards, but to take a little step back, I know this is a preliminary idea that none of us were aware of, and it's probably good to share some of these points. But I guess if I understand it right, this is such a rehab of that whole school. It's got to meet all current county design standards, which is going to be sidewalks and separation and everything else. I guess I wouldn't get too exercised by it right now, because frankly, the county's going to, as I understand, would require them to meet current standards, which are pretty explicit these days, recognizing there are kids coming from middle school and walking, and is the driveway in the right spot because of those issues. I think they're going to have to work it out with the county too, because what you're pointing out, I'm sure, are red flags with the county as well. But so it would be probably good to meet with them and share the first observations. Like even drainage, I think, is going to have to be an issue they're going to have to fund to fix if it's going to contribute to a problem. Based on what I understood, new development was going to have to do anywhere in the community. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think the county will be on top of this one. We just need to be aware of it.
So that's a really, really good point, Jeff. What Chris Unger told me is that, and of course we'll know more when Ryan comes next month, but what he explained to me is that the plans go to Sacramento, and the plans have to be approved by some school agency up there. And that's I guess the first step of codifying what the plan is going to look like. And so I'm not sure that Sacramento is necessarily going to take into account some of these issues, like the middle school kids and the drainage issues and things like that. Do they really know and identify 11th Street as being a collector street? We know the county knows that, but the county's done nothing to assist Baywood Elementary in slowing down traffic or creating a more safe environment there at the school the way it is right now. So I guess my point of view is I don't want to just depend on the county to do it. I want to make sure that we're highlighting our areas of our concern. And if they get addressed along the way, great. And if they don't, then we can say, hey, wait a minute.
No, that's fine. I'm sure Sacramento is going to have their standards for schools and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's got to fit within the county processes and stop permits. And if, I don't know if there's going to be another take thing because they're going to end up putting a building where ground is. There's all kinds of issues there that are going to be fairly complex, I guess. And I don't know if, certainly you want to highlight like that driveway that was mentioned. Being on a corner is probably not a smart idea. And be aware there's a lot of water issues there, and just kind of stay not way in the background, but just kind of be able to see where it's headed. But rather than sucking a lot of energy out of us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally understand. I just, want to go through a once over here.
Yep.
So that when Ryan comes, we're productive with his time and our time.
Sure.
Trish, I see your hand. I just, I want to say it would be good for us to have an understanding of what the standards are. And one of the things that
maybe I can maybe help with that. In my past life, I have done many of these.
Oh, great.
As an architect. So the State Department of Education will weigh in on this, and they'll be mostly concerned about, have you got enough playground space? Have you got enough other classrooms the right sizes, and so forth and so on. They'll not be concerned with anything off the site. And so they'll defer that to the county. But what goes on site is strictly a state issue. In other words, the state agency, the DSA, is going to issue the building permit. It won't go through the county at all. So the Field Act took that away from cities and counties entirely.
Interesting.
So and they'll be concerned about the seismic safety and do you meet Title 24? And there'll be all those concerns that they have, and nobody's going to be worrying too much about, is your driveway too close to the corner?
All right.
That's good.
You're
Good
spot
news.
on for having the concerns that you do with the drainage and all of those things.
That's good information.
Excellent information. Thank you so much. Trish, you have your hand. Is it Trish or is it Jeff?
It's Jeff. I was just going to parrot what Ted said is about the Department of State Architect and their role, and Ted's absolutely right on their role in this. And there'll be an inspector that the school district will hire, a DSA inspector that will make sure that they adhere to all those rules, the structural, Title 24, et cetera, et cetera. But the offsite, the anything on the street outside of the property of the school would be, I would guess, would be the county. But my suggestion it would be that we may also want to meet with somebody in the facilities department at the school district too, and share our concerns, because I think that might be a better even better place to start than the county.
So you're saying facilities department of the
School district, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So July, Ryan will be here, and he's the guy. In fact, Chris said he's in charge of this whole project. And
you're talking about Ryan at the school district.
Correct. Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yes, Ryan Pinkerton.
Yep.
So this is great. This is exactly what I feel like we needed to do, is just sort of give this a once over, if you will. I did mention to Chris Unger, who's the trustee. He actually lives down in this area. I want to say he's right on 9th Street, but not at El Moro. I mentioned to him that, LOCAC, we have relationships with other agencies, the Basin Management Committee, obviously county staff, and so forth, but we really don't have a relationship with the school district. And it seems like it would be a good idea to have some kind of ongoing relationship. I sent him a copy of our Safe Track report, and he was like, wow, this is really impressive. I mean, and then he sent it to all the other trustees. So we have something to offer them. And they have information that's beneficial to us as well. So I'm going to try to open that relationship up a little bit, and because we have 3 schools here that are really important to the community. Any comments about that?
I would just say, like, from a relationship point of view, like, keeping and maintaining that relationship with Chris, as well as potentially Rob Banfield, who's the other sort of Los Osos trustee. I don't want to say that Ryan's not responsive, but he's a lot more responsive if he knows the board is paying attention to it. And I think that having Chris in the loop and sort of bird dogging him about this is kind of the way that we're going to see responsiveness from the administration.
Okay. Okay. Good insight. So that's where the relationship will be then. We'll concentrate on that. Do any of you people know either Ron Danfield or Chris Unger?
I know Chris sort of reasonably well. My parents are friends with him, and the union, I'm in the teachers union. We just endorsed him for reelection. So we know him sort of reasonably well. And I'm happy to sort of reach out to him, or however you guys want to manage this. Because I do think, like, if, Ted and Jeff, assuming, you guys are correct in that this is a sort of state architect question purely, and that the county doesn't really have a role in it, I just think it's really important for us to be able to influence the architects who are putting this plan together, because it seems like that's the only kind of pressure point that we have available to us.
I think that's really smart. And especially because they kind of are using this build it here and then tear down the old one, which of course makes a lot of sense, but it may not necessarily make sense in the overall design of the school within the location, based on the fact that we have these two busy streets, that really need to have some sort of traffic calming. I've walked that street so often and thought, well, maybe a little roundabout at El Moro and 11th Street that would force cars to slow down. But I'm not a traffic engineer, so we definitely want to get the county focused on this, so that when the school is designed and built, that we have the best solutions. That would be my desire. Anything else? Anybody else?
Well, I'm
Okay.
sure they're going to take this into consideration, but the timing of it, would they try to do it as much over the summer as possible to not interfere so much with the school year, in session?
Yeah. So I did ask Chris what the timeline was, because I thought, well, if I don't invite Ryan Pinkerton to come until July, are we gonna be too late? And he said, not to worry, this project is it's just in its initial stages. They're gonna finish all the work at Loams first. I don't know all of what they're doing there, but they're doing a lot of stuff there. So they're gonna, from a financial point of view, finish all the work there before they even think about starting Baywood. So we have a much longer timeline than, well, we'll ask Ryan when he shows up, say, when are you thinking of starting this? Dave, or I guess it could be Bev. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Dave. I don't know if you want to start a laundry list, but I noticed there was a nice picture on that plan of a fence around the school.
Mhm.
And I'd like to know where walking students would be entering the campus, and also where bicyclers would be entering the campus. Because if everybody's got to go around and come in through one gate up there on 11th, as you mentioned, 11th is a lousy street to have the entrance of the school. So that
Terrible.
was something I noticed. So, I mean, and I don't see any reason why the transportation committee of LOCAC ought not to have a lot of input on this, because obviously people have to get to school, get home from school, be picked up at school, etc. And if the school district has got an architect working on it, no offense to architects out there, they aren't always the most practical people in terms of the practicality of their design. So so thanks for putting 2 extra things on your list.
You're welcome. Yeah, when Jeff and I were out there just 2 weeks ago, right at the time that school was letting out, it was complete chaos. there were kids in every direction, and we looked and we were like, where are the crossing guards? Where are the adults? And it was a little scary. It really was. So okay. Let's move on then. If we don't have anything more to add to this subject, just know that in July, I'm expecting Ryan Pinker to show up. And if you have more comments, feel free to email me, make a list. Like I said, I want us to be organized and professional when he shows up so that we're very clear about, what our concerns would be. So I want to bring you up to date with the Bicycle Advisory Council. Actually, it's a committee, it's not a council. I think I may have mentioned that the county sent them away and said, instead of redoing your bicycle plan, we want you to convert to an active transportation plan, active transportation committee. And so they're in the process of sort of regrouping themselves. Creating an active transportation plan for the entire county is a huge undertaking. It's going to take a lot of money. It's not something that's going to happen right away. However, I think we can do our part by creating our own plan for active transportation. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about for a long time. So for those of you who are new, I'm going to share this piece of work. This is Jeff, do you want to talk about this, or would you like me to talk about it?
Not sure.
Oh, you're on your iPad. Let me talk about it. This is something that Jeff created when we originally started talking about active transportation. So he calls this the core loop. It's a proposed active transportation core loop would provide readily accessible means for bicycle and pedestrian, commuting to schools, commercial centers, and coastal access. Plus, it would serve general recreation use. So this is a concept, and I'm just going to use my so this is Los Osos Valley Road. Right here is the community center, and this would be Palisades. This, of course, is all open land here. This is the trailer park down here. This is Ramona, and this would be going down into Baywood. So these lines that you see here would be a proposed pedestrian bicycle path. And we did actually touch base with the property owner. We spoke to the property manager, and they were, open to us having a path go through their property. That path would go here. This is Pismo. And so Pismo right now is dirt. And so we thought, okay, we could use Pismo as a return, sort of the return of the loop. And then this is 10th Street, which is a bicycle boulevard, which means that it's blocked here at a certain point where no traffic can come through. So it's a very, very quiet street. So you could walk or pedal. And then, of course, this is Los Osos Valley Road, where there is sidewalk. So that was the core loop concept. And we may not be able to do it exactly like that because Pismo now has had some of its easement given away. But the idea is to take a look at, and that's why I sent you guys this little map. This is a really old map that the chamber put out. But the reason I go back to this map is because these little yellow lines are areas that are dirt or they're unpaved areas. And because of that, it creates an opportunity to have a bike or pedestrian path. So my idea, and Trish and I have talked about this, is we want to go to the county and say, all right, county, we want to reserve these easements for future trails, bike trails, pedestrian trails. Please don't give any of this away, because what happens is a private property owner, which actually happened here on Pismo, said, oh, well, I'd like to take over my half of the street. And the county said, okay, go ahead. And then they build a fence, which is exactly what this guy did, build a fence, and now it cuts off the potential access there. So take a look at some of these areas. I have a list here that I was making. So one of the really, I think, prime streets is Skyline over here. And Skyline essentially could connect. Now, this is this imaginary line. This would be sort of part of our core loop. Come down around Ramona. Skyline is a street that's dirt for the most part. It could connect here to Palisades. Broderson, right here. Rosina. Where is Rosina? Right here, Rosina. This would be a great one, although I think the residents have already taken over this street. It's signed as a private street, so I don't know if we can get that back or not, but that would be a great one, especially getting access to Monarch Grove. San Luis Avenue has potential, especially if we don't get Pismo. So I just want, I'm putting this out here for you to think about, for you when you're out walking and you're exploring and doing things within the community, and you see an area that you say, oh, you know what, this could potentially be a great path. We especially want paths that connect areas, like connect the business district here to the community center here, to the library, or to the commercial area here. So put your thinking caps on, make some notes to yourselves about, you know, what could potentially be good paths, because I want to create a document that I can take to the bicycle advisory. Well, I'm calling it the bicycle advisory because they're not officially transformed yet, but I want to take our conceptual plan to them and say, all right, we're helping you out here by identifying areas that we see as future trails. The BAC, Bicycle Advisory Committee, is also working with Parks and Rec to identify those trails, because this would really fall under Parks and Rec more than a county project. So we want to make sure we're part of that conversation. All right, I want to see your faces again. So any thoughts, comments about that?
Yeah, when I was first thinking of the core loop, what I was actually thinking it was actually circles outside the core loop, so you could get to from one community, sub-community area or neighborhood community, get on the loop to get to another community or get to the commercial areas or something to that extent. And that's one of the reasons I also on that one diagram is we started, it's coming back to me here, identified all the, I guess, fringe recreational things that somebody in one area might want to get over and get to the deal at the golf course or something to that extent. So that's kind of what prompted that. And then it was, how do you keep the core loop as tight as possible, or else you lose people, because if they got to go meander all over the place, they aren't going to do it. At least that was my thinking. Now, maybe that, you got to be practical and use what you got. So,
all right, I'm really glad you brought that up. I didn't have this up on my computer, but here you go. This is, now we're seeing inside of the thinking of Jeff Krebs here, where he's
Okay.
identified neighborhoods and an illustrative way to segment the community to examine their specific active transportation, commuter, recreation, and street calming needs as a part of an overall Los Osos active transportation plan. Jeff, you're a man ahead of your time here.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But yeah, that was what my thinking was at the time is, based on wherever somebody resided. And then it was not only trying to be transportation getting from one point to the other, but recreational transportation with families if they want to go for a bike ride with their children or something like that. So, I mean, it was trying to be all inclusive, which is really, really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody who wants this information, I'm happy to share this with you. Just let me know. So big thanks to Jeff for really taking some time to think about this issue. And so we have the beginning of a plan. And I don't know if you remember, but for those of you who attend LOCAC meetings, and I always report on transportation. I always talk about active transportation. And Bruce Gibson said to me, well, Deborah, maybe you would like to be, the first one out of the box with an active transportation plan for Los Osos. And I said, done. I'll do it. So we have our marching orders from Bruce, and we're going to keep marching down this road of creating a system of paths and trails within Los Osos. And I just want to share with you my personal opinion, okay? Now that the Coastal Commission has removed the prohibition on homes down in Baywood, we're going to see some activity. We're going to see some homes being built. We're going to see some growth. And now is the time for us to start thinking about how we want this community to come together within that concept of growth. So I think that we just keep presenting our ideas. We keep standing in front of the county and saying, this is what we need. We need this path on Los Osos Valley Road. We need, access to these roads where we can get easements and so forth. And at the end of the day, or the end of the year or decade or whatever it might be, we will have something that was really worth working for. That's my 2 cents. Anybody else want to comment about this or have any ideas that they'd like to add to the list? If you want to just email me and send me information, that's fine. I will include it. But I just want to put this out there for your consideration.
I think it's a great starting point, especially I know we had talked a few months ago about the potential, what was it, the California Coastal Bike Trail, something or other, right?
Yes.
To tie this into that so that you have something that actually works for the kids going to school and works for, potential money down the road for some trail or whatever.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing the California Coastal Commission did, is they approved the Cayucas to Morro Bay connector, which is part of the coastal trail. Now that they're going to be all the way into Morro Bay, the next step is to bring them into Los Osos. And we have an opportunity to bring them into Los Osos because there's currently a study being done of South Bay Boulevard under the basically because of climate change. They're looking at it for climate resilience. Obviously, we know that road floods during high tide and rainy and season. So they will probably be looking at rerouting that road in a certain way. So that's an opportunity for us to get our coastal trail put in. There's also the pipeline project. The Los Osos CSD is talking about putting a pipeline in between Los Osos and a Highway 1 to connect to state water. That's also an opportunity for us to put in a trail there. So we want to get that trail from Morro Bay into Los Osos. And I think that can happen.
And from there's going to be pressure to connect to the Bob Jones Trail in Slow. And that gets you back to Highway 1.
Yeah. So fun and exciting and great. And shout out to Meg, who's been working on the Los Osos Valley Road bike pedestrian path for many, many years. It's going to happen. I believe it's going to be one of the first projects out of the box when they complete the corridor study.
I sure hope so. Sort of a side note, we had talked about the last time I asked you about grant writing and if you had found somebody and you hadn't at that point. And I'm trying to remember the details, but when I looked into it before with the application, an individual cannot apply for a grant, but a school can, or an organization like LOCAC could. And I'm just wondering if we should at least see what the process is for fulfilling, everything needed for the application, and it might not require an actual grant writer. And I was wondering if you knew when the next cycle was.
Well, there was a cycle that was just I think the deadline was this month.
Oh, okay.
LOCAC. And I had a conversation with John D'Annunzio, and he said, I don't know why the county didn't put in a request to do the multi-use path. It's a community betterments grant.
Mhm.
And he was disappointed that they didn't.
Yeah.
So of course, there will be another cycle coming up. So this is one of the things that we want to really put some pressure on Jake Hudson at the county and make sure that we get some consideration here. Now, I did talk to Jake, and he said that what's happening with the corridor study, and he said, well, we're going to go and have technical meetings with stakeholders like the equestrian group and certain other people. And he said, then they'll go back and they'll finalize everything, and it will be another 5 or 6 more months before it's complete. And then the study comes back to LOCAC for comment, and then it will go to the Board of Supervisors. So along the way, I really feel like I'm going to want to stay in touch with John D'Annunzio at SLOCOG and make sure that I know when's the next cycle of funding coming, and then keep bringing it up to Jake about put something in there for us, because I know SLOCOG will fund it, but the county has to apply for it.
The county has to apply for it.
The county has to apply for it. I
Hmm.
think I don't think LOCAC can ask for it. I think the county has to apply for it, but I could be wrong. Let me check.
Yeah, because I seem to remember Mike, who used to come to the meetings way back when we were having them at the community center. He was sharing a story about a group of kids at a school. They put something together. Obviously, they had help doing it, but it didn't sound like it was it didn't sound like you needed a specific grant writer to, you know, fill out the application
Mhm.
and
Okay,
with all the information that was needed, so.
all right, I'll check with him. I'll find out.
And is that funding you're talking about through Caltrans?
Yeah, LOCAC gets their money from Caltrans and
Okay.
they're like federal
This-
money and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right, so that, it could be different, maybe that's a separate, they have different, you know, requirements or whatever, but, I was just thinking of something, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, safe routes to school, that would be a completely different
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, yeah.
So we might be able to jump in on that.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. Unfortunately, because of the budget deficit on the state level, they had a huge pool of money for active transportation and if I'm remembering correctly, they took about out of the $1 billion they had set aside, they pulled back 600 million because of the budget deficit. So that's, you can kind of expect that, right? And so we'll see. We'll see. You know, there's still money there. It's still for active transportation. If we have a good project, which we will, and we do, I think we'll be able to get it funded.
Yeah, this is Jeff. Kind of to Meg's point, though, I know we're looking at infrastructure money, Caltrans money, or whatever, but I do recall when I think when you first presented the concept of Core Loop with the bicycle committee way back when, you had an air resources guy come up and say, well, wait a minute, I like this idea. I got money. And I got to believe the health department, because you're now getting people out and exercising more. It's got to, you know, it just, you know, we just don't know enough is our problem of what are those resource buckets that might be able to be leveraged to, yeah, it's a trail, but yeah, air resources will do it because, you know, it's getting a car off the road. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's good that you remember that. I had forgotten that, but that's true. I haven't seen them come to the meetings lately, but yeah, there's an air quality control board and they have funding for things like that. So we just need to get the project to a point where we can ask for funding.
Yeah, and I guess we just have to keep, you know, brainstorming and be creative because I think there is money out there. So are you saying that it needs to be approved before we can even start funding anything?
Well, okay. I'm
'Cause
not
there's preliminary stuff.
This is I'm just going to tell you my understanding. So
Okay.
first of all, it has to be in a document. All right. Well, it's in our Los Osos community plan, which very soon, shortly, will be approved by the Board of Supervisors now that the Coastal Commission has approved it. So it's
Right.
in there as to have a multimodal path, separate path on Los Osos Valley Road. That's number one. Number two, we have the corridor study, and you can believe it's going to be on there because we've just talked about nothing else to the county, right? So it should be in the corridor study that there should be this bicycle path. And once that happens, then I think we can go and say, all right, now we need money to do the design and the engineering of it. And then,
Right.
you know, and then once we have that, then it's called shovel ready. And then you can really go get money. Because sometimes it has to be shovel ready or they won't even look at it.
Right.
So
Fortunately, what happens is a lot of jurisdictions that happen to have slush funds or whatever will commit those funds that they have available to doing the design so that they can pounce on anything where actual construction funding comes along, the big money. And that's where you know, a place like Los Osos has to really struggle to get something in line.
Yep. Yep. Well, and that's why this corridor study is really going to help us, I think, I hope, because it will create that foundational document.
Yeah.
And yeah, so any other comments, anything else anybody wants to add? Well, that's what I have for you this evening. I appreciate your participation. Great committee members.
I got
And
one other thing.
yeah.
A public comment not on the agenda.
Oh, you know what? I skipped over that. Yes.
It's
And
just,
does anybody have public comment for items not on the agenda or
Just-
items on the agenda, whatever you want to talk about?
I see. Just as an FYI, we've got one of the sheriffs that come to the LOCAC meeting, and I don't recall his name, but I reached out to him and talked with him a little bit. I asked him, I said, well, if we could get some seed money, can we give that to a sheriff or CHP or something like that? Again, rewarding drivers for good behavior. I've seen every once in a while, you'll see that on the news where people have that. So we talked about that a little bit. And he said, well, we can't stop anybody for doing the right thing. So that probably isn't going to work. But then what he said was, but you know, and we talked about schools and stuff like that. And he says, I could, he said he could reach out to the school resource officer and get some ideas about maybe giving out little chits to good driver behavior, and it may be good for a cup of coffee at Not Uncle Bean or something to that extent. I mean, we were just kind of brainstorming. It kind of went off on a tangent from what I was thinking, but you know, maybe it's something that the crossing guards could have, and they see, you know, people are doing the right thing, and it's trying to get that going. Haven't taken it anywhere, and I don't know where else it'll go, but it's a different idea of trying to, I guess, reinforce good behaviors. You know, they're not pulling over in the sidewalk or something like that. So I just wanted to throw that out. I introduced that idea a little bit, but we haven't really taken it any farther.
Interesting idea, Jeff. So creative. Any comments on that? Not really exactly sure how to make that work, but it's certainly a twist on, instead of punishing, rewarding. I have to say I like that.
Yeah, it is a nice idea, but making it happen could be a little tricky. So again, creative thinking.
Yeah,
is
appreciate
needed.
that. Anything else? Any other comments? Thanks for pointing that out to me, that I skipped over that agenda item. All right, well, then I will say goodnight and thank you all. And if you're interested, come to the LOCAC meeting on the 27th. Otherwise, I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.